Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to today's Quran study. Today we'll be reading from Surah 37, starting at verse 9. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. They have been condemned. They have incurred an eternal retribution. If any of them ventures to charge the outer limits, he gets struck with a fierce projectile. Ask them, are they more difficult to create or the other creations? We created them from wet mud. Zoom in here a little bit. While you are awed, they mock. When reminded, they take no heed. When they see when they see proof, they ridicule it. They say, this is obviously magic. After we die and become dust and bones, do we get resurrected? Even our ancient ancestors. So just looking at these verses, this is picking up from the previous verse about the devils, the jinns. But I mean, not all jinns are devils, because there are good believing jinns. There's various kinds of them, as we know from Surah 72. They're just similar to us, like they have different paths. Some are righteous, some are less than righteous, and then some are compromisers. So that's just God letting us know that they're kind of like us in the sense of the communities and stuff. There's believing jinns, disbelieving, maybe atheist jinns, and so forth. So just looking at the jinns and the powers that they're given, or maybe I should say abilities, because God has all the power. But the capabilities and things He's bestowed upon these creatures to be able to witness God's evidence, they can travel and roam the universe. So specifically looking at the devils here, the devils are condemned and they have incurred an eternal retribution. So, that's the worst retribution in the hereafter, the eternal retribution. And so, we're also told that any of them ventures outside, either to spy or charge the outer limits, they get struck. So this also lets us know that even their abilities and powers that God has bestowed upon them are very limited, in the sense that they're not powerful. They're not creatures really to be, not even creatures to be feared or anything like that. We should only fear God, right? And that there are much more powerful creatures, far outnumbering these devils and also the humans. We know how many, well, we don't know how many angels there are, but we know that there are angels and that there's a lot of them. And if we look at, their creation, looking at verse 11, we can see that how the human being was created from wet mud. And the question is being posed, to ask these creatures, about their own creation and the creation of other creatures, such as the human being. How we're created from wet mud, and so I think verse 11 is referring to, just, it's going back to the communities and human beings. You can ask them about their own creation, or other creations. And we were created from wet mud, and the believers are going to be amazed and awed by such a thing. Just thinking about and pondering how we came from a single drop. Like if you look at a drop of water, respectively so, like comparing it to, a sperm drop. It's the same, maybe not the same density or viscosity or anything like that, but just the actual like fluid structure and the surface area and size. I mean, so you just look at that and you think about a human being coming from that. I mean, it's really, it's really, it should be impossible. Like, but everything is possible with God, and what I mean by that, that's more proof. For those who have intelligence to look around and realize that all this is perfect, and that there's a specific design to everything. And while some of us can be awed in this, there are those like we have read through the Quran about messengers and people going to their communities with proofs that they instead of taking heed and or maybe wanting to join in on the discussion or the remembrance of God in these respects. In this respect, they end up ridiculing them. And really, what's going to happen to these people if they don't reform? They just end up really ridiculing themselves, because when they watch their tape on the Day of Judgment, uh, it's going to be the worst thing for these people. So just imagining when they see proof, instead of taking heed, they say this is obviously magic, and they question. And equally so, if they're questioning about becoming bones and dust, why is it so hard for them to believe this when they came from a single drop? Or even at one point they don't even remember their own birth. I mean, maybe the earliest memory they have is could be when they were 4 years old or 3. I mean, how do you even explain that? There's so many proofs for people, uh, just all around them, just their very existence, their eyesight, this dimensional reality that we like traverse and move around in, and how everything's working perfectly. Say yes, you will be forcibly summoned. All it takes is one nudge, whereupon they stand up looking. They will say, woe to us, this is the day of judgment. This is the day of decision that you used to disbelieve in. Summon the transgressors and their spouses and idols they worship beside God, and guide them to the path of hell. So this is so easy for God to do. And I mean, this is really something, because this is an event that is going to take place with so many people, the disbelievers that have disbelieved in the day of judgment, the day of reckoning. And these are people who if they arrive on that day without developing their souls and believing and becoming a submitter, a happy submitter to God willfully, I mean, they're gonna be in the worst position, right? But we know that the rejectors, they um they only do this to the detriment of their own souls. God gives the whole world so many chances and so many proofs, and especially the proof for our generation, the 19th base code of the Quran, and yet there's still people that will argue against it or just choose to mock it or ridicule it or disbelieve it, and it's always been the same system, and this confirms, that it actually confirms the message more, like the actual messenger's rejection, and it's always been the same system. I mean, there's verses in the Quran about this, and and how most people, no matter what you do, won't believe. And the day of decision that these people used to disbelieve in, so I mean, naturally, these are people that must be averse to the idea of accountability, even against themselves. And so these genuinely, I mean, while they're in this state, of course, I mean, they're not good people, because if they actually had, I mean, even the logic that we have here in this world, when you do evil, you're going to get evil consequences. When you do good, the good things tend to happen. I mean, even though it's a human-based uh, system and infrastructure, I mean, like we have laws and stuff, and if you break the law, there's some type of consequence. And not to get like too deep into that, because man's law is not perfect, not near it. And there's a lot of other like caveats to that about unjust laws and stuff. But the basic premise is, we can see, if someone hurts somebody, there's going to be a consequence. You got to go before the judge and so forth. But beyond that, I mean, that's also a parallel. I mean, the fact that it's always been like that, pretty much throughout history. I mean, minus of course, the corrupt communities and other things. But for the most part, I mean, we can see this system just exists in our own reality. So the bigger parallel, or not even a metaphor, but the bigger example here is this is like the real system that is going to be perfect and just and absolute, um, is coming. The day of decision. So I mean, these people that choose to disbelieve in this, or are hoping to, punish another human being that they never even met to absolve them of their sins. I mean, these are unjust people. These are people that don't, uh, that they, like God tells us in the Quran, they hate the truth, um, whatever they disbelieve in, whether it's, idol worshiping or so forth. So 25, why do you not, or excuse me, 24, stop them and ask them, why do you not help one another? They will be on that day totally submitting. So, again, we can see the fallacy of idol worship and how, uh, regardless of what people say or believe in this world, I mean, after the respite is over, the everybody's going to find out the truth that God alone is our Lord and Master, and that He's the supreme. No one possesses power except Him. No one can help you, and that's true now too. That's the thing. Just on the day of judgment, when people get there, it's gonna be like the vision is show. Everything is gonna be. I mean, it's unimaginable. I mean, we can try to imagine what it would be like, but we can't even come close. But all truth will be on that day apparent and evident to everyone. So I mean, like, but the truth still stands now and forever that God possesses all the power. But of course, there are people with veils over their eyes and choose to insist on idol worship or choose to worship humans, especially humans they never even met, that they don't. Uh, um, it's going to be really unfortunate for these people. Uh, I mean, I mean, not just them, but we have to think about ourselves. How often are we attributing power to something, or if something goes wrong, are we losing our temper? Are we not submitting? Are we not, like in a sense, like submitting, realizing God is running everything and doing everything we can. And this goes even for small things, and just even thinking about myself. When something doesn't go right on my phone or computer, even a hurtful thought, or a thought that it doesn't benefit myself, it doesn't benefit any of us. So we have to really put ourselves under a microscope and tell ourselves every single decision, even the small ones, like I think this is the mindset we have to have. The small ones are just as important as the big ones. Now, of course, I know like when we make mistakes and other things, there's different levels of consequences, of course. But the way I think to look to the right perspective to have is that even the small decisions play into affecting you hereafter, for better or for worse. And this is, uh, this is how. we can help ourselves by God's lead, and we'll be a lot happier this way because as we get stronger and more, I guess maybe trained isn't the right word, but as we continue maybe to train and develop and strengthen our own souls, like a verse, there's a verse that about strengthening our own souls. I mean, this is only going to help us. So things in the future actually get easier, and not to say that there won't be hard times, but it'll make those times when they arrive, if they arrive, much more easier and manageable. But only with God's help. And it's also why we have to constantly thinking about God 24/7 is so helpful because even with the small things, um, we can do well, and the large things too. Excuse me. 27, mutual blaming. They will come to each other questioning and blaming one another. Excuse me. They will say to their leaders, "You used to come to us from the right side." They will respond, "It is you who are not believers. We never had any power over you. It was you who were wicked. We justly incurred our Lord's judgment. Now we have to suffer. We misled you only because we were astray." Thus together they will all partake in the retribution on that day. This is how we requite the guilty. So we also have a surah in the Quran. It's called Surah 64, mutual blaming, and we can also see this actual. I don't want to just call it a situation. I mean, it is, but it's a lot more than that. But we can see how this is going to unfold. About what the dwellers of hell, those who are doomed in the hereafter, and they're going to blame their leaders, for scheming against them. However, if you put your trust in God and do what you're supposed to do, their schemings can never hurt you. Even if you, despite what their schemes are, or if you get wind of different schemes and some of the stuff, we don't. I mean, it's fine to be aware about that, to make preparations and as needed, and but we know the only protector is God. He's the best protector, and their schemes can never hurt us. Despite I mean, we have so many examples throughout the Quran. I mean, like Moses going before Pharaoh, the elders in the army, and he was even in Egypt for some time, while the plagues were happening, and he was untouchable, not because he was great or anything, or he was special. I mean, he was special in the sense like he was chosen by God, and he was possessed patience and strength, and had honorable traits as a messenger and prophet, but it was God who was protecting him and doing everything for him. So we have so many examples, and that's that's the correct mindset we should always have. And so we can see that the leaders will respond to their followers, saying that they were wicked. I mean, this is going to be happening forever. I mean, even if you were locked in a room and you weren't suffering, like an allegorical fire or darkness, which is incomprehensible, like how bad that would be. But even if that wasn't, even if you were locked in a room forever and you were just arguing with people and screaming at people, and maybe not even kicking and punching. I mean, all these things are going to be happening allegorically, and it's going to be so much worse, right, than what we can understand. I mean, that would, even just arguing and screaming and shouting locked in a room or a confined space forever is horrible. I mean, for eternity, get any news. You don't have anything pleasurable, any nice thoughts. You don't have God, most of all. I mean, that's like the punishment of all punishments forever. You know what I mean? It's not even going to be one fraction of that. It's going to be incomprehensible worse. This is how serious, the situation all of us are in. And why, what, like, what's at stake here? Uh, and then, the fear and reverence for God and His control over all these matters and the hereafter, and then, hope also, and hope for the hereafter and His mercy. When they were the first commandment, when they were told La ilaha illallah, there's no other God beside God, they turned arrogant. They said, shall we leave our gods for the sake of a crazy poet? In fact, he has brought the truth and has confirmed the messengers. Most assuredly, you will taste the most painful retribution. You are acquitted only for what you have done. So only someone who would turn arrogant against this, these are people that hate the truth. Everything would be, if it was left up to these people, to be with these people, I mean, everything would become diseased, corrupted, rotten, polluted, painful to exist around or follow. This is why, like, the guilty pretty much get their wish in a sense. If you think about what they advocate, how they hate the truth. Um, like the verse makes a lot of sense about it. Everything would be corrupted. About the verse that if there were other deities, you know, there'd be nothing good, nothing to look forward to. And so you can see that this is the consequence for their opposition and disbelief, especially. This is the third and final chance that we have here, and so it's pivotal for us and for these people, them, the whole world, to come back to God, with a submitting heart, with no ego, and why we have to kill our ego. Because if you don't kill your ego, then uh, you're not going to be successful. That's one of the first commandments. It's not the first commandment, but it's one of the first commandments in the Quran, in Surah 2. And note how they call him, what they refer to him as, calling him a crazy poet. I mean, imagine being called these things and being ridiculed and called all types of names. But this has always been the case, and it's more evidence that, especially for the messenger of the covenant of his messengership, it's not the evidence, but it's just piling evidence on top of more evidence. We have his how he advocates the worship of God alone, never asked for any money, and even made sure more money left his pocket. And he came with a formidable proof. But then all the other things around me, you can see all the fake messengers and like these lying pastors and preachers and imams, rabbis, or just pagan cult leaders, wherever. The whole charade. Like many people follow them. Like, I mean, even the current. I mean, we can see people are followed, like these idols are followed in the hundreds of thousands, but yet when it comes to the actual, like a true messenger, just a human being, very few people follow him. Even the people that were with him at the time, most of these people end up dropping out and becoming hypocrites at some point. So I mean, we've been We have a lot on our plate, or a lot at stake, I should say. But the point I was making is that that system that we see here with our own messenger, meaning this generation's messengers, is more proof. No one preached, no one ever has said worship God alone. Before the messenger of the covenant, you just didn't hear it. You couldn't find it. I mean, even if you found a few Christians that maybe did worship God alone, they weren't. Well, first off, they weren't messengers. Second off, they were they could have still probably been following things that were they didn't have a perfect book, because the Bible's been um, corrupted. Most people follow that 10% of corruption. So I mean, uh, we now have a purified scripture, that we're reading now. So it's something to really, really be thankful for. Verse 40, I really like that verse. And I think we'll see it in this surah. We actually see this verse repeated, um, about the devotion to God alone. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone will be saved. They have deserved provisions that are reserved specifically for them. All kinds of fruits, they will be honored in the gardens of bliss. On furnishings close to one another. Cups of pure drinks will be offered to them. So these only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone. So what does this mean? Meaning that we should only be devoted to God alone, not to any human. Meaning God is number one. I remember the messenger said, I forget how he said it, but he said it's only God, God alone. There's nothing else. Like, because there's some people that I even see like in people's bios and stuff, and not that you can't love other things like your house or your spouse or your vehicle or your job or your business, but nothing's wrong with that. But I guess let me say. But so he said, there's not, where some people say God's number one, and then number two is so and so, and then because that means there's a number three and number four, and so I mean we see this is the case with people who believe in God, right? But they're still going to hell because there's other idols, there's other gods in their lives. So devotion to God alone, should be indivisible and only reserved for God. So when we love our possessions, our fellow humans and brothers and sisters and spouses, that uh, we know that love only exists for them because it comes from God. So we think about God in those moments, when we're happy with them, even through the tougher times. We're always remembering God, and they remind you of God. You remind them of God. Everything is about God. All that matters is God. Because without Him, we wouldn't have any of this, right? We wouldn't have spouses to have tranquility with. We wouldn't have, nice, cute animals to look at, or things to laugh. I mean, we wouldn't have wouldn't even have like lips or skin to move to, or eyes or a brain to think, to like enjoy all that. I mean, these are things that are just so freely given to us, and it proves those who, I mean, part of the test that is affected, I think, on people is really, like we're freely given something. Of course we don't have recollection about what happened, but how about being appreciative for God, about being appreciative to God, right? For things that, even if you're freely given something, and nothing was even, um, nothing is like even required to, you know, I mean, it's an obligation, and it's, I'm thinking of the verse that says all that was asked of them was to worship God alone. So I'm taking that into context, because I was going to say, nothing, like we're freely given our eyesight and ears, and maybe we could talk about this after. I want to hear other people's thoughts, but You know how I mean, basically the human being is given all these things, and that they're not, you know, they're freely given to them, and are not required to, to thank God, in a sense where they have the free will to just go throughout life heedlessly, be unappreciative, worship idols, disbelieve, take the air that they breathe for granted, all these things, and then on the day of judgment, if they don't reform or snap back into it, into the reality of the truth, then they'll realize they lived the whole life, not taking all this for granted. And then on the other hand, there's those who are appreciative and will thank God, and love God just because of His awesomeness and all these things He's given us. So, I mean, there's basically two paths ultimately we could take. And so, like there's the two, I think the messenger commented on it, but there's the believer and disbeliever, and he said that, oh yeah, the other word is unappreciative and appreciative, or appreciative and unappreciative. It's basically, we also see how Solomon and David, we see some heavy emphasis in that, in those chapters, sir, we just read recently, Surah 34, about appreciating God's blessings, and just even the last, um, the last, I think Surah 36, about all the proofs, and Surah 35, initiator, the winds and all these things that, like, we're just, if we're not mindful, we can take these things for granted. But this is where, when we really look through with uh, like the right lens and a clear mind, and we can use our intelligence to think about these things. And it does help to think and put ourselves, not fit really, but like put ourselves in situations if we didn't have any of these things. I mean, I found this to be helpful. I think even the messenger talked about it, and he also touched on, when the temporary taste of hell, when God comes to the earth, how there was the audio, how we will know, be even more appreciative, for the people who make it to heaven, they'll be more appreciative, you know, and how people also on the, so it helps put really things in perspective too. 46, clear and delicious. I'm gonna probably speed up here. Clear and delicious for the drinkers, never polluted, never exhausted. With them will be wonderful companions, protected like fragile eggs. So these are more allegories for paradise. And I mean, even if you want, like the verse, if you, God willing, we make it there. But even, if the dwellers of paradise, if they want something, actual drinks and fruits like the provisions they had down here, I'm sure, they could get it, because there's a verse that says they will have anything they wish there. But really it's going to be, the ultimate reward isn't even these things. It's God, and His awesomeness, and how He lasts forever. Everything perishes. I mean, imagine not having anything, or there's no life. I mean, that would be like hell. Without God, there'd be nothing. Nothing to think about, nothing to do. It would be the exact opposite of everything we have good here. Uh, Verse 50, the dwellers of heaven visit the dwellers of hell. They will come to each other and confer with one another. One of them will say, I used to have a friend, he used to mock. Do you believe in all this? Or excuse me, do you believe all this? After we after we die and turn into dust and bones, do we get called to account? He will say, just take a look. When he looks, he will see his friend in the heart of hell. he will go to him and say, "By God, you almost ruined me. If it were not for my Lord's blessings, I would have been with you now. Do you still believe that we die only the first death and we never receive any requital?" So the footnote for verse 55 we just read says, "People who make it to heaven will be able to visit their relatives and friends in hell without adverse consequences. In the hereafter, anyone can move downward, but not upward beyond a certain limit. The limit is decided by one's degree in growth and development." So this is really um, so pivotal why we have to develop our souls, because if we even had I mean, of course, everything is our physical distance from God here on this earth. But I mean, if the human being even remotely had an idea of like, uh, I mean, none of us do, about uh, how intense, the energy and how like the level of magnitude when God comes to the earth, and also, I mean, we're given examples, with the creation of nuclear bomb and stuff. The messenger talked about that. It's like a billion nuclear bombs going off at once in the earth, but it's even more than that. But that was just like an example. So we can see that this is something that the dwellers of heaven would be able to do, and visit, friends they may have had in the previous life, which is this life which we're in now, that uh, were friends in the days of ignorance or whatnot, and even mocked maybe when you gave them the message, or people you used to know and hang out with, and um, specifically talking about um, you know people who make it to heaven, because those people are just going to be people. I mean, may God make us amongst those people. But we can see, this. I mean, like thinking about how scary this verse is, verse 55. I mean, even I don't know if hell actually has a heart, but you can see that. I mean, if you look at the what is being said here, I mean, just imagining like the two totally polar opposite destinations, that two people um, may have taken two very different paths at one point, and I mean, this is why like this life is both like paradoxically so like the most important thing we have, and because it's our third and final chance, but at the same time it's not uh, it's not the real life, you know. And maybe I shouldn't say it's a paradox, but that's, I guess, for lack of a better term. But moving on, kind of speeding up here. Verse 60, redemption, the greatest triumph. Such is the greatest triumph. This is what every worker should work for. Is this a better destiny or the tree of bitterness? We have rendered it a punishment for the transgressors. It is a tree that grows in the heart of hell. Its flowers look like the devil's heads. They will eat from it until their bellies are filled up. Then they will top it with a hellish drink. Then they will return to hell. So I mean, this is gonna be like something that pretty much every dweller of hell has to go through, and this is forever. They'll be circulating through the inferno. We know from what the Quran tells us, about. But even allegorically, I mean, this is I mean, even if you were to do something like this in real life, and I mean, it would be so bad. I mean, like imagine drinking boiling water. I mean, we've seen people like do something crazy and they pour boiling water on themselves or something, or accidentally, and they like are scalded, and it's so painful. I mean, the worst pain. I mean, imagine drinking that and then doing that forever, or even 10 years or 5 years or 5 minutes on this earth. I mean, it's literally like hell, hell on earth, and it's not even it's not even going to compare. So, I mean, this is what's at stake, and this is on both accounts. Like we read about just the beautiful bliss of heaven, and then the exact, inverse of hell, two completely different destinations. One is back with God, and then one is the complete loss and absence of God. So this is why, like with this type of mindset, all our decisions should always be based around this. Every single decision, like what we're doing, how we talk to people, when we correct ourselves, when we repent. I mean, everything that we're doing, small and large, small, medium, and large. They followed their parents blindly. They found their parents astray, and they blindly followed in their footsteps. Most of the previous generations have strayed in the same manner. We have sent to them warners. Note the consequences for those who have been warned. Only God's servants who are devoted to Him alone are saved. So here we see that, mashallah, we see this verse again. This is a good reminder, it should just be God alone. All that matters is God, nothing else. And this is, it'll free you up from, if we, you keep this in the forefront of your mind and ask God to keep helping us and growing in this respect, it'll free you up from any worry that would try to come from the devil, or fear about maybe something not happening the way you wanted. And even if it doesn't happen, you won't, it won't like bug you, or affect you, because it's just temporary. It's just illusion. It doesn't even matter. All that matters is God. 75, Noah. Thus Noah called upon us, and we were the best responders. We saved him and his family from the great disaster. We made his companions the survivors, and we preserved his history for subsequent generations. Peace be upon Noah among the peoples. So we're at time. So if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. If I made any mistakes, may God forgive me. Thank you.
MashaAllah, brother.
MashaAllah, thanks.
MashaAllah, thank you.
Mhm. So yeah, so I just want to say, like, when we were talking about the first commandment, it says, when they're told la ilaha illallah, they turn arrogant, And I know when you were talking about the ego, you were saying it's one of the first commandments, like, but when you think about, like, not the first commandment, but one of the first commandments, but kind of like it is the first commandment in the sense that, when God says, you shall worship me alone, you know, if you have an ego, right, you are not worshiping God alone. So worshiping God alone involves us having to kill our egos, you know. So in other words, the first commandment does become, among other things, right, killing your own ego as a god and then all other gods. So it's part of the first commandment in a way, you know.
MashaAllah. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, yeah.
MashaAllah. Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, I understand what you meant regarding at the onset in the beginning of the Quran, like, one of the first things
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
commandments we see is you shall kill your ego.
Yeah.
Right? God says, which is a good reminder for us because that's what brought us here in the first place, right? I mean, people don't know about what the ego is. You don't hear people talk much about egos. Like before we became submitters, like we had no idea like what I mean, we knew of course people have egos, but not to this level. Like, you could just be thinking about yourself and what people think about you. And that also counts as your ego being your God, because you're thinking more about yourself either way. So it's very easy to idolize your own ego without even knowing about it. You don't have to idolize your ego necessarily by thinking like you're
Mashallah.
invincible or something.
Yeah, yeah, that's very important. That's
Um,
that's so important. That's
hmm
kind of like, I know everybody's different, but that's uh I think I've mentioned it before, yeah, but like when I first came into submission, like about 2 years in, I remember like, I was talking with you and you were encouraging me to start posting stuff, like
hmm
mathematical stuff, and then I'd never done it before. And then I was like, why am I like hesitant? Like I was just thinking to myself,
hmm
I was out working and I started getting like very panicky and like scared. I'm like, wow, like, I was freaking out.
hmm
Really. I was like, man, this isn't good. Cause I was
hmm
valued. I was like, man, you can go to hell. Like this
Yeah.
isn't like, like something like this, the fact that I couldn't, well, not that I couldn't. I mean, I
Yeah.
did, but that's what it had to come to, like, and
Yeah.
then mashallah, like completely,
hmm
changed. And now it's like I'm a
Yeah, and
different.
kind of like even when you started posting in the beginning, like you were still trying to kind of say things but not really say them.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, like, oh, when we're preaching people like from the Quran, like we shouldn't, like we don't want to make it sound like we're preaching from the Quran.
Yeah, yeah. I actually remember that. Yeah, I was posting a thing on from the Marina Del Rey sermon, and then mashallah, you said something. If they deserve to be enraged, let them be enraged. And I was like, yeah, you know
hmm
what? Like, what am I? And then like I
hmm
did it. It felt good, and then actually got
hmm
good responses. But yeah, you
Mashallah.
realize like it's so important to
hmm
like look at these things, because if we don't get these things right, it
hmm
can cost us a hereafter. Then like we'll be
hmm
there, go, oh my gosh, like that wasn't even worth it. Like how,
hmm
so.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing, other lesson for us with that is also that, we should not be afraid of people hurling insults at us because of our belief, because that also counts as credit.
Right, yeah,
I mean, people
exactly.
who get persecuted because of their religion, and I mean, not just everybody, of course, people who are on the right path.
Mhm.
So, that counts as credit, special credit. They have special ranks than those who are not persecuted.
But can we say that, the angels don't have ego, or they already killed their ego? Can we say that, for example, because they didn't doubt that God was could be the only God like that.
hmm
We were here because we had this doubt, right? That's the
Yeah.
difference between us and the angels.
hmm
So, can
Yeah.
we
The
say
ego
they
is
have
a
also an
quality.
ego, but they, yeah,
No, they don't have egos.
because
Right.
the devil was an angel, and because of his
hmm
ego,
hmm
he became what he is right now. Yeah. So can we say that, for example, the angels, they also have an ego, but they killed it? Let's
No,
say.
no, the
Oh, okay.
angels
I
don't
don't
have
think they
egos, right?
ever. Yeah, no, they
Because
never.
because Satan had these thoughts that made him a jinn, right? And
Uh-huh.
so he had ego, but the angels they didn't have anything like that. So they weren't they that's why they're angels, right? But Satan was an angel,
Yes.
but he had ego, right? Which got exposed. But jinns didn't. I mean, the angels didn't have that to begin with. If they did, then they
They
would be
never
exposed
had
too. Yeah,
they
I mean, if
never
they
had that
did,
thought.
yeah.
But they
If
could
they
have.
did, I mean, they're not robots, yeah. So they could
Yeah, okay.
have,
So ego
but they
comes with
didn't
free
have.
will, first of all.
Not with free will. I mean, it's a part like it's a free will just comes with the test. But the thing is,
Mm.
God knew the souls, the people who sided with Satan had ego.
Uh-huh.
Us included,
Uh-huh.
right? We wanted to come down, and so we had ego. Angels didn't. It
Mm.
wasn't the free will was given to us later in the sense of coming down to earth. I mean, but
And to
the
choose
angels
between
have free
God and
will
the
too.
devil.
It's not like angels don't have free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
They worship God. God does not want robots,
Hmm.
right?
And he
So they
proves
worship
with
God.
what is happening that we aren't robots. Also, the angels also are not
They are
robots, or
not
any
robots. Yeah,
creature,
yeah.
anything that God had created, like as a
Hmm.
creature, none of them are robots. All
Hmm.
of the creatures that he has created
Yeah,
have their own free
yeah,
will, and the
yeah,
majority of the creatures that they side
yeah.
with God.
Hmm. They say only Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are robots or
Okay.
aliens. Sorry, I'm just kidding. No, they're aliens, not robots.
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
so then you
Yeah.
have, of course, the ego, and when God says, "Kill your ego," this basically means like never to follow what the ego wants, like or follow that thought. Killing the ego means that, right? Because the ego, for example, wants to um because of our egos we do a certain thing, and now by killing it we decide not to do it. Does it
Hmm.
make sense?
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, it's a way of killing your ego, right? I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, you kill your ego every time you worship God.
Yeah.
So over whatever else you want to do,
Yeah,
So
you
you
know, I
your
should
was
ego
do.
wants
thinking.
to do something and then you don't go with that. You say, for
Hmm.
example, yeah, like the 5 times daily prayers, the contact prayers. Your ego doesn't want to do the dawn prayer, for example. But then you do the opposite. You say, no, I'm not gonna follow my ego. I'm gonna worship God. I'm gonna do what He says.
Yeah, I mean that's a way of killing your ego, but like also simply remembering God, instead of thinking
Mhm.
about yourself, is a
And
way of
accepting
killing
that
your
He's doing
ego.
everything.
Hmm.
He's in full control.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's a very important, not like maybe the most important commandment, right? Like killing your ego, because
Hmm.
it all of it has to do with the ego. Like you have people, they pray 5 times a day, for example, but they do it to show off to some people. So
Hmm.
even while you're doing the prayer, if you didn't kill your ego, then actually you are using the contact prayers to feed your ego, actually,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
So
if
there's others too. Like
mhm,
if you have a problem doing it in public, and I mean, of course, like with the development of the soul and stuff, it's so important. But this will also tell you, like the messenger talked about it. He talked about both spectrums. Like no calorie meals. So he said, if you're embarrassed to pray in front of your friends or something, for example, he talked about that too. So I just wanted to point that one out as well.
mhm.
yeah, I mean, so basically, if you're idolizing your ego, you're basically idol worshiping. You're not gonna make it, right? There's many people who are saying they're submitters. I mean, and I know I feel like I always bring that up, like about submitters, like I'm against submitters. But the problem is that many people who are saying they're submitters, but saying you're a submitter and being a submitter are two totally different things. And so we all every now and then see people um, that uh, fail to kill their egos, right? And so because of that, they tend to, let's say, idolize their personal opinions over what God and His messenger has taught us. And so they end up, or basically, in other words, they end up falling in love with their own opinions. They have an opinion and then they fall in love with it,
Yeah,
and they end up.
like the like the sun guy. I'm
Right.
sorry, I didn't want to distract you. I was
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about it.
yeah. So I mean, that's exactly like uh what they're doing, right? A bit more absurd than that, actually. So, so these people, I mean, of course, they nullify all their works. Right? That's why the test is more difficult than we realized, because it is such a hard thing. It's not as tangible as someone, let's say, worshiping Muhammad or Jesus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, so it becomes tricky.
Yeah,
But
even yeah, mashallah.
mm,
It does become tricky, like you said, because even but I'm like I was talking to, I think it was Claude or GBT the other day, and it said something that it kind of put words in my mouth, and basically said, like, I knew what it was saying. It was basically just going over something that I already knew, right? And I was
mm,
well aware of, and like normally a person, let's just say a person with an ego, uh would be insulted, by like, oh, you think, I don't know where the power cord goes or something, just for
mm,
example, and that this isn't USB-C, doesn't isn't powering it, actually is a power cord. So anyway, that was like, but I was looking, and I was like typing it, and I was like, why would you say something like that? Because, and I started to, but then I was like, wait, why am I even like, I was like, that has to be ego, like if I'm gonna sit here and
mm,
correct, and instead of just moving on and just saying, okay, and then just getting benefit, just look over that part and get benefits from the rest of the message. And then I was like thinking about that, like it can be tricky because in that moment, like it's you know what I mean by like that example. That was just an example, but
mm.
um
So like, so I'm trying to understand. So you're saying like you were talking to it and it was trying to tell you something that you already knew and you were getting
yeah,
upset
yeah,
because it thinks you're stupid.
yeah. Well, yeah, pretty like it was actually my hard drive thing, and then maybe it misunderstood me, but the USB C is for the hard drive reader into the laptop, and then it comes with a power
Hmm.
cord. Then it says USB C. Know this USB C does not actually power the device. Blah blah blah. And I'm like just like scratching my head. I'm like, is it being serious right now? And then I started like, I was typing some other response, and then I got to that part where I was typing. I was like, wait, no, 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 I don't need to say anything because then that's like just But
Hmm.
I've made mistakes before in that respect with like AI, and I'm like more conscious now. But
Hmm.
yeah, like it's yeah, it's so important to do like do these value.
Yeah, I mean,
Like it was. I'm like I almost thought like sometimes I've had a knack like, like, is it like
hmm,
trolling me or is it something? Because I mean, these things are very nuanced and intelligent, like the
hmm.
artificial intelligence. So it's, uh,
Yeah, I think to myself, like when I heavily interact with AI, like the thing is, like it can like I feel like, sorry if some people can relate to this, but I think it is important in this age. Like we talk to it a lot, right? Everybody
yeah,
does
yeah, yeah,
nowadays.
yeah. I
So
agree.
like I like like we know that it's not like a living creature, and it doesn't have feelings as like humans have feelings. But like if you talk to AI like in a certain way, knowing that it doesn't have any feelings and you can't hurt its feelings, etc., like
Mm,
you can kind of like get in
Kind
this
of,
habit of being rude sometimes, or callous and
yeah,
stuff, and
yeah,
then you could be talking to, let's say, other people, and then these you can start exhibiting the same patterns because you're training yourself to be like that,
MashaAllah, that's
so
a real
like
good way.
yeah, so I mean, I what I start doing is start treating it like the same way like I'll treat another person as
Yeah.
I'm talking to it, like and being polite and
That's
kind.
smart. Yeah, yeah. That's very that I never
And it
thought
like
about it like that. That
yeah,
you train
yeah,
yourself to literally speak. That's so true.
yeah, because like because like I notice like when I work with it a lot, like I you can get frustrated,
I agree. Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
And
definitely.
like of
I
course you
agree.
don't have to write full sentences, it understands you and everything. But
Hmm.
then I feel like it just reinforces bad habits and attitude and stuff that makes you sound more egotistical,
Hmm.
like it's like a servant that you can basically like boss around and just be rude, as rude as you want it to be. So like I don't like that anyways, so because also one of the things that got me thinking was like I realized that if you talk to it politely, like not all models but some models, like if you talk to it politely, it tries to keep that same level with you, right? Like if you say thank you and or if make a joke, let's say it'll joke back with you, right? But like
Hmm.
if you kind of just keep it like straight cut, just say it as it is. Also, like it says it back to you the same way.
Yeah, yeah,
So like I like the principle like you say like treat others as you like to be treated.
yeah. The
And really when it comes down to it, when you think about it, the creature that God talks about in the Quran is made of earthly material, right? Like it's all the submitter, the is earth, right? Really, the earth is a submitter, and in other words, like when you think of it, you're interacting with the earth
You're
as a
talking to the
creature,
earth. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a,
so just I just try to keep my standard the same, whether it's I'm talking to a real person or I'm talking to the computer, and that way also I have less chances of me, let's say, losing my temper or getting too frustrated, etc. And also it helps me train myself to do better, if I'm talking to a real person tomorrow, like a coworker or someone.
yeah, that's a see that's the right word.
Hmm.
Mashallah. Brother, I had another question
Yeah.
about. Uh, it says, it is a tree that grows in the heart of hell. Its flowers look like the devil's heads. They will eat from it until their bellies are filled up. Then they will top it with a hellish drink. Then they will return to hell. Like, does this mean that this tree
Hmm.
is outside of hell? Like, do they,
Hmm.
but
I thought your question was going to be, what does the devil's head look like?
that was the second
I don't
question.
know.
That was the second
I was
question.
like, I don't know, Jafar.
Now you know me very well.
How do we know what the devil's head looks like?
Supposedly, aren't there some flowers or
No,
something that
no, it's
Yeah,
allegorical. Oh,
yeah. I was
everything
gonna say,
that's in the Quran.
look at our president. I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
Um, it's the devil's heads.
Right. So your question
Uh,
was about the tree that grows in the heart of hell?
yeah, and then, but it says, then they will return to hell after their bellies are filled up. Then they will
Mm-hmm.
top it with a hellish drink. Then they will return to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they return to hell if they're already in hell, or like
Well,
maybe
I
it's
Like,
think
a
because they're in the heart of hell, which is like
mm-hmm.
maybe a different
The
part.
different place than where they actually reside in that sense, right? So like
oh
like everybody is in their own ranks, right?
uh-huh
And so there's this tree, allegorically speaking, that grows in the heart of
uh-huh
hell,
uh-huh.
where they go and eat and then they go back.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Makes sense.
And then, I mean, this also shows that these verses also show that, I mean, hell is not like this imaginary thing, you know, like some people make it sound like completely like it's an imaginary uh, thing, you know, but
Mhm.
these things show that it's a very real thing. You know,
It's also
it's more
physical.
real than this world that we live
Very
in right
physical.
now.
Yeah, I've heard that saying. Like, I don't know what if it comes from this Taoism philosophy nonsense, but yeah,
Hmm.
they try to say that. I mean, they don't try to say; they just say it.
Hmm.
That like, oh, it's all in the
Yeah.
mind, and if you have this point of enlightenment, even if you're in
Hmm.
hell, it no longer becomes,
Hmm.
and it becomes it
Hmm.
becomes
I've never seen. I haven't. No, I'll be honest with you. Like, I haven't seen. I haven't seen so many people like in America talk about hell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, than I have in the recent few days. You know, everybody's talking about hell because this one
Yeah,
uh,
that
senator,
yeah.
politician, who was always, you know, advocating war in Israel and stuff. I mean, war in Palestine and stuff. You know, he died,
Uh,
and you're seeing so many comments about people talking about hell. You know, like it's funny actually. One person said that he said that I'm an atheist, but I really hope that hell is real. When this person died, because this they wanted this person to be in hell. But it was kind of ironic in a way because that means that that person also doesn't believe in hell. Otherwise,
right.
he would
Yeah, I
not be.
saw that comment and I was thinking like, yeah, but I was also thinking to myself, well, you're gonna be right there with him. Maybe
uh,
if you don't, that person. I was
right.
like,
Hmm.
I think I clicked on their profile and they were like,
Hmm.
looked like a lesbian,
Hmm.
homosexual or something.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that.
But Lindsey Graham,
So.
he was all that. He was an Epstein file, man.
Hmm.
Not to digress, but
Yeah, he was pretty bad. So the thing is that, I mean, hell. Um, what was I gonna say? Actually, I forgot. The cat just jumped in front
oh,
of me. I forgot. Um, yeah, I mean, subhanAllah, every time we see that, every time God talks about hell, he also talks about paradise, right? Because and then yet people will tell you that, you know, when they read the Quran, only it's God is trying to scare people, and, you know, people say all kinds of horrible things about the Quran, and you
that
can see, but
I think they are mentioned exactly the same numbers.
same number of times,
yeah,
yeah,
they're always
exactly.
Same
mentioned.
number of
Yeah,
times.
the messenger said like they're always mentioned with
Hmm.
each other.
Hmm.
But that's one thing. Like I actually like when I actually because in the Bible you don't actually hear much about hell. It's especially with
Hmm.
modern Christianity. It's just like this kind of like you know you don't really know much. There's just kind of
Hmm.
like fantasy reality like belief about
Hmm.
floating somewhere in the clouds and like you don't even it's just so convoluted but like when I first uh read the Quran the
They took it
messengers trans
literally. They didn't
uh
took it allegorically, I think.
yeah but like right but that too but I guess like in the Bible there's not really any mention about like even heaven and hell like there is in the Quran like when you read the Quran you just when you read these verses you just know it's the truth because
You get
you don't
a
see
type of
anything like that in the
understanding,
Bible.
right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it's I mean, why would you not want to hear about like the best destiny and then of course,
Hmm.
be aware of the worst destiny, you
Hmm.
know? Uh
Yeah. Yeah, so
coming from the Bible, I guess.
mhm. Yeah, so I also remembered what I was gonna say about where I was going with my comments about hell. So what I was saying was that, for a lot of people, like, in this case, like these people are atheists, right? But one of the things that I think is we should all appreciate is there's also comfort in knowing that there is hell also, based on the amount of injustice and evil that we see around us, right? When God says, promise these people a painful retribution and all of this, like, in this world, we see all these people, a lot of very evil people get away with a lot of stuff, right? And we see so much cruelty and injustice around us. But when we see these things about hell, like it gives you a sense of justice and comfort, knowing that there is hell, that there are all these people that inflict and scheme and all this stuff that eventually justice is being served. Like there's no such thing as, because God is the most just, right? So he's not gonna let anything slip. I mean, it's natural that we get frustrated when we hear of atrocities and all kinds of injustices where people, if they are able to victimize other people and they think they can get away with it, they'll happily do it for their own gains, right? And selfishness. And so, people tend to get upset and angry, as they go through life and see these things, thinking that, let's say if you're rich, that you can do whatever you want and get away with anything, right? But this gives us a sense of comfort also. Obviously, the Quran is God's healing and mercy for the believers, right? So it is healing in a way when you see even these verses that God talks about hell, and then also when God talks about paradise for people who um, obviously are striving and everything, and being tested and all that. That God will reward them as a form of encouragement.
Yeah, and what if, like, imagine that God didn't even said anything about hell or heaven? Like, how would that look like? Right now we have this information, like allegorical, of course, but
Mm-hmm,
we have this idea of hell and heaven, and it makes all sense, right? But what
mm-hmm,
if we didn't have all that information
mm-hmm,
about hell or the paradise?
mm-hmm,
So that would make it really like strange. You would say, okay, but what's gonna happen when we die? Where are we gonna
mm-hmm,
go? Like,
mm-hmm,
what kind of a place is that? Like, and then
mm-hmm,
it would make you think about it. Like, is
mm-hmm,
it worth it? Is it really true?
mm-hmm,
Maybe even difficulties believing in it. Like
mm-hmm,
God giving us like example
mm-hmm,
allegoricals, of course, because we live in this world. We have
mm-hmm,
a human mind. We have this worldly, like when we think with we have our imagination, but you can only imagine about things that you have seen, like, right, in a three-dimensional world. So that's why God is also talking about a tree, for example, right? And when God says a tree, in my mind, I see a tree. I know it's allegorical, but it gives me this idea of what it is, right? Like, or
mm-hmm,
filling your belly. I know what
mm-hmm,
it feels like or what it means to eat, right? To
mm-hmm.
fill your belly. So it's really
Yeah.
amazing. And if God didn't do that, like, we would not have, we wouldn't have any clue about the hereafter, and that would be really strange. And we would
Mm-hmm.
always guess, right? Like, or maybe, like, it would be really strange, right?
Yeah. And
So
also
even
it
that's a
it
great blessing.
yeah, definitely. And then also it's a way to knock out this excuse that the disbelievers can have on the day of judgment, saying that, they didn't know how terrible hell was. So, God nullifies their excuse now by telling them how terrible it is in the Quran, even allegorically speaking. So they can't say on the day of judgment that, what, we didn't know how bad hell was, so otherwise we would have done better. So God describes it to us very graphically.
Yes, with the understanding of like this world. He
Hmm.
talks about fire, painful things, and trees and that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and which also is interesting because like the messenger when is explaining in the Quran studies, like he's saying also about hell being a very dark place, like it's not like
Yeah,
literal
there's no
fire.
light there. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, when the people from heaven go there,
Hmm.
paradise, they will say, borrow us from your light."
Hmm. Yeah, I mean there was one dream that stuck with me like a few years ago. I had this dream about hell. I saw hell and I saw some people I knew that were in it, and like it was a very different thing that I would picture otherwise, But in my dream, it was very different. It was very dark and very cold. It was like, and I saw like rubble everywhere. Like it was, like like if you see, for example, a place like Gaza or something, right, which is all just rubble and just everything is destroyed. Like that's the kind of place I saw with pitch dark, with no light, and just like very uh, sad and depressing. You know, so it made me
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
these verses.
Hmm. Yeah, you get a real good idea that it's like a very, very bad place. And
Hmm.
same with the paradise, like you get this idea like this is the
Hmm.
best and amazing place to
Hmm.
go. So, but if I'm not mistaken, brother, like you once said, I don't know if the messenger of the covenant also said it, but um of course we should strive in the cause of God to make it to heaven, but the real um the real point is actually to do it because God said so, right?
Hmm. So
Like it's not.
yeah,
Hmm.
but I think I think I remember what you're referring to.
Hmm.
So, and the messenger said it too, but what he said was about perfect happiness. Like, in this world, let's say, we are doing things, but we're not doing them because, we want the vanities of this world and stuff, or like we're not doing them because we're chasing happiness. Of course that comes as a side effect, right? And even the paradise will come as a
Hmm.
side effect, but
But the real.
we're doing it because we love God and we know that
Hmm.
He's the Lord of the heavens and the earth,
And we do it because
right?
he said it, because
Hmm.
that's real worship, like you do it
Yeah,
only because he said so.
yeah,
And if
because
he
we have no
besides that.
choice,
Uh-huh.
because we have no choice but to worship Him alone. There's no other option, basically.
Yeah, but you're doing it willingly,
Yeah, but I mean,
Hmm.
you also understand that He is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, so you have no other option but
Uh-huh.
to worship Him alone. If you don't worship Him, you're hurting yourself. That's
Uh-huh.
realizing your soul is a part of God, right? He's your Lord and Master.
Hmm.
So it's gonna grow if you worship Him. It's gonna burn if you don't. So that kind of comes with the package in that sense, also,
Hmm.
right? But I mean the idea is that you realize that God is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. So that's why you're doing it, you know,
Uh-huh.
because of course if you
Because it's
have
the
another
right thing to
Lord,
do.
yeah.
Also, it's because of how awesome God is too. When we
Hmm.
And
like
it comes
how
with His
we
presence. Actually,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's the
like how
thing.
we enjoy it. Like it's
Mm.
it's kind of like your best wish ever came true. Like if you woke up from a dream or something, or like your dream, like the fact that God even made us to worship Him, it all makes perfect sense because it's it's
Mm-hmm.
like the verse, or the not the verse, but
Mm-hmm.
the theme is happiness is submission. And
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't want any other way. And like us even coming here being so stupid to even test, like how the verse that says we transgress the limits, and even wanted to see what the other alternative, I guess, is, or see
Mm-hmm.
Satan's
It was
demonstration
a
was the
stupid act.
stupidest thing. It's like we
Yeah.
almost, I mean, gave up I mean, we did it really, because I mean, I think the message, like we were all, not that I'm going back to the messenger for the, well, I don't need to, but we have it in the Quran. But like we were all there, and but um, but thank
Actually,
God for our final chance, because it's yeah, like
but there's also this part, brother, where you please correct me if I'm wrong, yeah? So, it is correct that it was like the human being was like stupid to, you know, like to have doubts and then to think that maybe the devil could be also some kind of a god. And then we wanted to be tested. We came to this world. We said okay, and we underestimated the devil, etc. But on the other hand, there's something what the measure of the covenant also talked about, like when you end up in heaven, specifically in high heaven, like your rank is higher than the angels that never doubted God, right? And that is because you have been tested. And this test was a difficult test. That's also something, right? Like if you think about it, you have these angels, they never doubted God. And then you have these souls who became humans and jinns. And eventually they go through the test, and they come into, like they have this rank, like a very high rank, even higher than the angels. And you guys remember that the message of the covenant talks about it. He said even higher than the angels, let's say, as a rank. And that is because of the test, because the angels are not tested, right? They never been tested. Do you guys recall that?
yeah, the ones who, the best creatures are the ones who worship uh God alone.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I had the same question a while back, and mashallah, brother Suleiman had uh clarified it for me, because it was kind of hard. I guess before my question was answered, that
Mhm.
they aren't going through the same test we are. Like they made the right decision, and we're the smart, intelligent creatures, same with the animals, but they're not tested like we are, with the choice to choose the the two or the one other alternative besides God. But still, even it was still so stupid, you know. Like I don't know. I was at the dentist. I was just thinking. Every time I go to the dentist, I'm like thinking about God, and,
Why?
and
Uh,
so anyway, I was like, I had some work getting done, and like I was pretty sensitive even after the numbing agents, and thank God for that too. But then like the dentist, she's a very good dentist too. Um, but just even a little bit of sensitivity, and I was like, oh, and then for like the next 10 minutes, I was just thinking, I'm like, man, like, uh, imagine, I mean, imagine how lucky we are to be here, for our chance, but like how foolish it was for us to even come here, like what we're actually risking, I guess. Um,
but but if you
like
but if
like
you
it make,
have this highest rank, let's say, can you then look back and say it was foolish of me? Like when you have this
I
rank
mean, it's
even
only
higher than the angels?
even if we make it God willing, but it's only because of God and His mercy, and it's not. Uh, I don't. I mean, I'm not sure. I guess.
You remember, brother, because like the angels, they said they wanted those souls to be thrown in hell, right?
Right.
And then you're in that group of souls. You're almost gonna go to hell, but because of God's mercy and knowledge, you don't go to hell, and then you end up and you become into this rank higher than even the angels.
Yeah, but
Um,
those people are the luckiest of the
and
lucky of the lucky of the luckiest.
yeah,
We don't know who
yeah,
those
but this
people
is
are.
this is because of God's knowledge. Like he knew that in that group of souls, there were these souls that deserved to go to highest heaven, for example, right? God knew this. The angels didn't know about that, but it was God who knew it. So with his knowledge, he placed them there because he knew they're eventually going to end up in the highest heaven, right? Because God is doing everything. So he's the one who planned all these things with his knowledge of who deserves what, and he knows about the future and all that stuff, right? So, and it's again because of God. That's really amazing, mashallah.
Yeah, thinking about like how that heavens and earth and the universe was all created, just for this demonstration, just for the test, and just for us, uh, for us, the human
Yeah, the
beings.
messenger also talks about
It's
this topic.
yeah, it's like it's so like incredible because I think the first time I heard that, I was just like thinking, because when you think about Andromeda and like all the, like, so many other things are happening, like with stars, and and how you think about how insignificant and small and the earth, and then how feeble and weak we are as creatures, and how great God is. You could do that without the least effort, like the Quran says. uh Never a moment of unawareness or slumber overtakes him. Um, so without the least effort, it did all this for the test. Um, yeah, it's really
Yeah,
amazing.
in one of these studies, brother, if I'm not mistaken, it goes like so the ones who okay, so there is this verse, right, where it says these people who end up in hell, they want to go back, right? They say, please give us another chance. But even if they would go back, they would still end up in hell. It's not going to change anything because God already knows that they don't deserve to go to heaven. They deserve to go to hell. So even if those souls were sent 1,000 times to this world, and even if they were tested 1,000 times, they will still end up in hell because that's their destiny. That's what they deserve, right? So why would you create a world, and why would you create this whole system only like it's not it doesn't make sense to test someone that you already know they are not going to pass the test, right? You already know it, even if you're going to test them 1,000 times. So the whole point was, because in that group there are some that are going to pass the test, then it makes real sense. You are doing it actually for the ones who are going to be saved, because the other ones who are not going to be saved, it's not going to make any difference, right? Even if it's going to be 1,000 times. But the ones who are going to end up in heaven, when you test them, they are going to pass the test. So the whole test is actually made so that the ones who don't deserve to go to heaven will eventually end up in heaven. And this is because of God's mercy, right? Because
So you're
like if
saying the
you
ones who don't
if
deserve
the,
to go to heaven will end up in heaven?
Yeah, I heard that.
no,
I
what
think.
Yeah.
again? Sorry,
You
what?
said
Sorry.
so the ones
Yeah,
who don't deserve to go to heaven will actually end up in heaven.
No,
yeah.
the
You said.
ones who don't deserve to go to
To
heaven
heaven will
will
end up
end
in
up in
heaven.
hell.
No,
No,
you
Yeah,
said
the,
you
Literal
said
right.
the
yeah.
ones who
uh,
don't. Don't deserve
Yeah,
to go to
gonna,
heaven, but end up in heaven.
yeah.
I was like, what?
I heard this. He, he's been talking about, yeah, he's been like
I
back and
was
forth with the
shocked,
words
man.
too.
I was like,
Yeah.
what? They don't deserve to go to heaven, but they end up in heaven. Then there's a mistake. Uh, yeah, there was this study, brother, where the
It's late
messenger,
here, that's why.
yeah, talks about this too. Where yeah, because I was thinking about this, like even
Hmm.
in the first weeks when I became a
Hmm.
submitter, I was actually talking to Mardani about this. I don't know if
Hmm.
he can remember or recall. So I was like really amazed. I
Yes.
was thinking about it and I said, all of these things that God has created, the earth, the heavens, like everything that is created is basically to save those souls. Like, because of his mercy, like
Hmm.
he's so merciful that he does all of that only to save those souls. Because
Hmm.
the souls that don't deserve to be saved or that are gonna end up in hell, it's not worth doing something for them because they are God's enemies.
Hmm.
And like imagine all these souls. If all of those souls never deserve to go to heaven, then they would end up in hell, like the angel said, right? But they are
Yeah.
not knowledgeable as God.
Yeah, but there's
So,
also more wisdom in the
of
sense
course,
that,
to prove,
you
of
know.
course, yeah, to
Hmm.
prove it too. And that's how God's system works.
Hmm.
He's a just God, there is
Hmm.
justice, etc. And God,
Hmm.
when God does something, he proves it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, mashallah. That was really amazing, to learn about, to, know about that. This is how God is, like, so
Hmm.
merciful. It was also amazing to, like, you like someone that deserves that has a higher rank than the angels, like only because you are being tested and the angels are not being tested. It's
Hmm.
different, the messenger says, right?
Hmm.
It's really different
Hmm.
because it's difficult, I think, as well, right? It's
Of
very
course,
difficult. Mhm.
it is, of course.
Yeah.
And that's why that's what makes the human being, you know, ignorant, because they all thought, yeah, of course I'm gonna worship God alone, gonna make it.
Hmm.
There's a reason why you're gonna get that higher rank, because it's so tough,
Hmm.
Like, how often, do we find, or at least for some of us, that,
Hmm.
we find, um, being overwhelmed with the life of this world, like, when we're tested, or,
Hmm.
etc. Like, we so often find ourselves in positions where, we think that, this is too much, like this life, uh, can be sometimes difficult for us, to pass. Like, for example, things are not going your way, but you have to, like, come to terms with the reality,
Hmm.
and just submit and not object and accept, things,
Mm.
because we didn't realize that we'll have to, we didn't
Yeah.
put everything into equation. Like, okay, it's not going to be
Hmm.
like a walk in the park as we thought it was going to be. Like, yeah, of course we'll worship God alone. Like,
Hmm.
no, it's not that easy. Which is why we have the failure rate of the majority of the human beings going to hell,
You
right?
mentioned
I mean,
last time.
yeah, I did.
Yeah, last study,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a special place, so not everyone is gonna
Mm-hmm.
make it.
Yeah.
Not everyone
Mm-hmm.
does make to the
Yeah.
university and, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
graduates.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
difficult. And if you do
Mm-hmm.
it, it's like very special.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
else it wouldn't be special, right? It wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah.
Brother, I
Yeah,
have
that was
one.
that was another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I guess it never made sense to me. I guess it was like a sense of injustice. Uh, growing up in Christianity, seeing it just didn't make sense. I guess like
Mm-hmm.
at all, and that's why when immediately, like, I recognized the Quran. I said, this has to be the truth, because then, like, this makes
Mm-hmm.
perfect sense. Like,
Yeah.
you do this, you're gonna get this consequence. You do
Mm-hmm.
that. It's not some kind of like thing that like, oh, somebody does this thing on the cross and some type of blood ritual. Really, what it is very satanic. What
Mm-hmm.
they say, and like, how is that gonna, like? And there's so many people believe it, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was such a
Yeah.
relief,
Yeah.
against the
But then you
Quran.
came across Mufti Mink and the cat.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, literally very shortly after I heard that, and that got me so depressed, because I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, like, kind of what hadiths and sunnahs are. And then I remember I was driving to school. I was 19, like, when I got introduced. And then I was like, how does that even make sense? And he was like, and it was because I asked my dad, and then he's like, no, no. He said, I think that that's from a hadith, because, like he said, this Mufti guy, he reads the Quran, but he also does hadiths. And that's my dad, who's like gone. He was like, I guess, listening. He knew the difference, and he knew hadiths weren't good, but like, he still listened to the guy, uh, or something. But yeah, yeah, it was I think, a way that probably the devil was, um, probably trying to discourage me or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I had a question about 70, about Noah. It says, we saved him and his family from the great disaster. We made his companions the survivors. So it was Noah, his family, and some survivors. There was this video I came across. This guy, he was explaining about the amount of years that Noah lived, and he said there, um, it's not about the amount of years, but it's basically about the amount of people. 900. Sorry, what was it? 900. No, 1,000 less 50. What was the exact? 1,000 years less 50, or 900 less. No, I don't remember.
Brother Jafar, I
What
think you
was
need
it?
to go to bed.
No, I wanted to ask this, brother. I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
this.
1,000 minus 50 is 950.
Yeah, yeah, it was exactly. Yeah, that. No, that is right. But how was it in the Quran?
I
It
thought you
was
were
like,
trying to subtract.
yeah,
Like, yeah,
no,
one
no,
thoughts 1,000 minus
no. When
50.
God mentions the years, He didn't say 950, right? He said
Uh-huh.
less 50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this guy
Yeah.
was talking about it, and I just saw
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, he was saying, it was actually 1,000 people, and then less 50 means 50 people were believers in him. So those 50 are saved, and the 950, they drowned. And then he was showing some Arabic translations and what these words mean. But I just, like, there's no way, if God says like 950 years, he
Mm-hmm.
was among them, then this means it's 950 years. This doesn't have any other meaning, right? This is how we understand it and how the Messiah of the Covenant explained it to us.
Right.
Yeah. I just came something like that,
Mm-hmm.
across. I wanted to mention,
Mm-hmm.
because he was using these different words and meanings. He said this
Mm-hmm.
word means this and that in Arabic, and then it's not about, like, because I think
Mm-hmm.
he didn't want to accept that someone could live a 950 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just talking to AI, and, like, yeah, it's funny.
Just have one too.
Yeah, that's good, brother. I'm doing more of what you had recommended or suggested, and uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, what were you saying?
So I was on the conversation. I was doing more of what you recommended, like
Uh-huh.
talking it nicer, and I just told her thanks, and I
Uh-huh.
have like this few like goofy words sometimes I'll use, and then
Uh-huh.
like it actually gives a better response, and then it told me, uh, it says maybe read the bag next time before it hits the toaster oven, smiley face. but but it says enjoy the rest of your day, and like, cause basically I didn't read
Uh-huh.
the bag. I didn't cook
Uh-huh.
something well
Uh-huh.
enough, and then it could technically
Uh-huh.
get you sick or something. And I was like, kind of,
Uh-huh.
asking. For,
Mhm.
it's funny. It got a sense of humor.
So, oh, my headphones just died. Um, right. So, any other comments or questions from anyone?
I don't think so.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So, thank you, Brother John, for leading the study, and thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, John. Thank you, brother.
God,
Assalamu alaikum. God
God
bless you
bless you
all.
all.
Yes,
Assalamu
assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.